at auction. 1 hen. Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. This is my messy original garden to the homestead. I'm turning this into a perennial space. I am using the front part for some annual things this year. I do have some broccoli planted out here, which has withstood a lot of temperature fluctuation. I'm very proud of it. Now, not all of them have lived, but most of them have. I have these covers over top to prevent birds and my cats from getting to them, but some of them have kind of blown away in some of the weather that we've had. They were staked down. At least I thought they were. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But I've got this part of the garden that I did put a little fence around. My lovely livestock guardian, his name is Buster. He has not been scared of the little white flags like he has been in years past, and he's been coming in the garden and laying in my beds, which isn't a good thing. Pretty sure my little fence is keeping him out. I am able to electrify this if I need to, and I did for the first couple of nights, but I took back my Energizer for the goats. However, I do need to do some pretty major clean out of this space. I'm actually late in doing it. Really, any time now we should be seeing some asparagus. I had started cleaning the asparagus beds out and then came across some ants, so I'm hoping that they've moved on. I didn't do anything for it, but I really need to get this cleaned out before the asparagus gets kind of choked out and really loses the nutrition to the weeds. I don't want that to happen. I had originally put this asparagus in 2020, so it's well established at this point. I've got some mushrooms popping up. Don't think it's anything edible. We do have an edible mushroom that does come up in my garden. I almost said it does volunteer in my garden, but do mushrooms really do that? I don't know. I don't think so. They just sort of grow wherever they want. But it's called a wood bluet, and it's purple. And that almost looks like a wood bluet that got affected by a freeze. We did have a frost this morning. We're not quite at our last frost date, but we're really close. A lot of these bigger things, these are the asparagus stalks that I allowed to grow out at the end of last season. That is the proper course of action. At some point during the early summer, we need to stop harvesting so that the plants can grow their fronds, and the fronds can collect the sunlight and then send that sunlight down into the crown to nourish it over winter time, and then they will come back. If you harvest too much, they're not gonna come back. So we've just got a lot of these old, dead, spent fronds, some little weeds. There's a name for these, I can't remember. Some of the weeds that are in here are henbit and purple dead nettle. I have a lot of that in my garden. And there's also the little dead remnants of Bermuda grass, which is not fun, but we deal with it all the time. And so we just work around it. I just pick out what I can and then weed it out of the garden through the course of the season. And it doesn't ever end up getting to a point where it completely ruins things, so it's okay. Oh yeah, there's the ants. Wondered where they went. I ran off looking for my diatomaceous earth and I can't find it. I might be out, but I'm going to the store tomorrow, so I will pick up some more. I don't know if these ants bite. I've avoided them because of that potential. I don't think I'm allergic, but you know, the bites itch regardless. So I'm just gonna do what I can to kind of work through this corner and get done what I can around them. I recently started milking my goats with my machine. I have a Caprolite Herdsman milker that I love. Really, I like hand milking best, but I can only hand milk about a gallon to a gallon and a half every day for an extended period of time before it really starts bothering my elbow. There's something about this motion, it must be tennis elbow, that really does irritate me, and thankfully I was able to purchase that milker, and it means that I can use this motion in the garden instead of in the milking room, because I use my hands for a lot of things and I apparently do the squeezing motion quite a lot. And they do have little like hand weeders I've seen, and a lot of those also take kind of a squeezing motion to activate them. So those tools aren't super helpful to me, but that machine milker is definitely helpful. These beds that are back here were here when we bought the property. They have been in place for about 10 years, which is amazing. So there was already soil that was established here. I did have to top them off. But when we first got here, the previous owner had their chickens free ranging, and the chickens were using the garden as a dust bath, which, you know, it's not all bad. She was taking a year off because they were moving, and she let the chickens go throughout the garden. And my first year gardening in here, which was after they moved, was actually, it was one of those first year gardens. I don't know how many of you can relate, but I think maybe quite a lot of you can relate. It was one of those first year gardens that actually did really well despite the inexperience of the gardener, and I credit the chickens for that success. This soil in here is nice and rich. We did just get quite a lot of rain, about maybe 4 inches or so. See, we've got our garden helpers in here doing their thing. And the benefit of soil that's been here and been worked, even though it's been neglected a little bit here and there, it's still performing quite well. I will have to amend here for the asparagus, and I'll show you how I do that. Personally, I think that every gardener should have a pet rabbit. We actually raise rabbits for meat on our homestead, but even if I didn't do that, I would want at least one so that I could have little mini fertilizer machines. I love rabbits for this. Their manure is a cold manure, meaning that it doesn't take a lot of heat to compost down in the bed, so it's not going to hurt your plants to put it right on top of them. And it's even gentle enough for seedlings. I have been known to put some rabbit manure in my seed starting mix. The seedlings love it, and it adds a lot of really nice organic matter into the bed, so it feeds the earthworms. And if you see this white stuff on the outside of the rabbit manure, that is a beneficial bacteria. I'm pretty sure. I mess this up every year, but I'll put the name for it down below. This is very good for the garden. It helps make the nutrients that are in the soil more bioavailable to the plants, like a lot of different mushrooms and things can, but this is bacteria based. Last but not least, I have another layer of hardwood bark mulch to add to the top. This stuff is shredded and it breaks down really fast. It's one of the reasons that I like it. And one of the reasons that I like using the hardwood mulch is that a lot of mushroom species like to use hardwoods to feed themselves on. They break down hardwoods. And so really what we're inoculating with the beds with isn't just this, moisture barrier that we're adding to the top. This is going to allow a lot of moisture to remain in the bed, but it comes with a lot of those ingredients for mushrooms, the mycelium, and possibly even spores and things. We get a lot of volunteer mushrooms, like I said, in these beds, and that mycelium network is like a gold mine for the garden. It's one of those living things that I really want to keep encouraging in this space, and this helps feed that mycelium that's already in the bed, and it brings in even more. There we go, one bed down, a little bit more to go, but I'm getting there.
Oh, I hit it! I hit it, it just wobbled.
What was it, the bottle?
Yeah, the bottle, it just wobbled. I'll let you do it. Dang it!
Dang, that bounced back here. Mommy's gonna go. My goodness. This is Clover's doe. This is Katie. Katie has been kind of skittish, essentially from birth, and I waited a little while to pull her because Clover makes so much milk. I was a little bit nervous that Clover would get mastitis if I pulled one of her kids. Here. You are so dramatic. Yes. Wow, she took this well last night and yesterday. Yeah. There we go. I had somebody ask me recently what it takes to bottle train an older baby goat, and a lot of times it just takes, well, really with anything with goats, you just have to be more stubborn than them, and sometimes it's really hard because goats can be very stubborn, so sometimes goats can be very frustrating. It's a lot of brain power to try to make bottle feeding work when you had really hoped that dam raising was going to work in the first place. I think one of the reasons that some of our goats are skittish this year is because we had so many born at once. It was really hard to like sit down with the brand new babies and get to know them because there were so many of them and there was so much going on that, you know, I was trying to rest in between births and not really sitting down with the babies. And so I really don't like to have my does kidding all at once like they did this last year. I knew that it was going to be hard work once I saw all the does coming into heat at once. Are you ready for yours? And I think, especially after the confirmation of this season, that I'm going to purpose to not allow all of the does to be bred at once because it just doesn't jive with the way that I like to raise babies. I don't like having to bottle feed and have bottle babies, but I also really don't like wild kids, and I don't want to sell anyone wild kids. No one wants a wild goat. A wild goat is a goat that gets sold a lot, passed around, doesn't have a good quality of life. So we've pulled Katie. This here, you may recognize them, you may not. It's kind of hard to get to know the baby goats when I don't show them super often, but this is Elsa's buck, Ruckus. And Ruckus is in here being trained to a bottle because I had to reburn his horn buds. So we do disbud our baby goats here, you can probably tell. That's what these little burn marks are on their heads. There's several reasons for that, and I'll link a video in the description box talking about why we decided to disbud our goats. But one of the reasons that I do it myself here is because I detest horn scurs. And a horn scur is a little piece of horn that gets left behind during the disbudding process, and it can grow into this weird, wily, crazy, little tiny mass of horn. Sometimes they're small and they can break off and not be a problem, but other times they can be quite large. They can have quite the blood supply, but because it's not the whole horn, they can be weakly attached and they can break and bleed and cause just a bunch of problems. So unfortunately for this giant boy, I had to reburn his horn buds where he had some scurs coming through, and after that he didn't trust me at all. And I don't really blame him. I'm just sad that the trust we had built up was completely lost because of that. So I had to pull him from Elsa, and I'm gonna put him on a bottle. Now, it might not take him very long to trust me again, and then I can just stick him back out there with Mama. I really want him out there with Mom. I don't prefer bottle raising my bucks because they can be really pushy when it comes, especially to breeding time. A lot of times people will say, oh yeah, if you bottle feed them, you're part of the herd. And with bucks, you really don't want to be part of the herd because, you know, they are really rough with each other in the herd. And, you know, bucks can get kind of crazy around rut season, and you don't really want to be part of that. So I really want him to be part of his actual herd and not necessarily consider me part of the herd, but I do want him to trust me because I need him to be handleable. I really want to be able to grab him so I can what are you doing? He's like melting into a puddle beside me. But I want him to be able to be handled so that I can take care of him properly and really enjoy having goats. I've had wild buck goats in the past, and it's just no fun. Yeah, this is only day 2 of them being on the bottles, so we're not making really any progress yet towards friendliness. There's Elsa checking on her baby. He's over here. See, he's scared. They'll come around. Come here, buddy. All right, come here, girls. Come here. So this down here is a little girl out of Ilara that we've been bottle feeding. I had separated her until she got friendly and then put her back with the herd. And her mama didn't really want to take her back, so I've been bottle feeding her. It's a nice little hybrid situation. But one time, when this one didn't take very much milk that day, I guess she had snagged milk from somewhere, I decided to see if any of the other baby goats would take it, just so I didn't have to put it back in the refrigerator and reheat it again. And without any kind of me prying her mouth open or any kind of real convincing, little Red here, this is Shindy's little doling with the waddles, she took to the bottle like immediately and sucked it right down. So I've been feeding her a bottle as well. I don't know if maybe Shindy isn't making a lot of milk or if her brother is taking a lot of it. He is quite big, so I figured if she's gonna take it, I will let her eat. So fine. That was almost a half a gallon of milk. Gone, lickety split between the 4 of them. There's not much besides eggs and milk coming in from the farm lately. My favorite way to preserve my milk is to make cheese. I also do cream separate and make butter, and I do have to do that probably tomorrow, but today I've got lots of eggs in the freeze dryer that I need to put away. And eggs are kind of a hot button topic in the news right now. For some reason, we've been hearing that people are paying astronomical amounts for things like laying hens, chicks, and fertile eggs. And honestly, I don't think it's worth it. I guess it might depend on how you're eating. Like if eggs are a very major part of your diet, you might find this worth it. As we put these away, I will tell you a couple stories that I've heard from our local community that just make me wonder if some of us maybe have gone a little bit off our rocker as far as the egg situation goes. So a lot of homesteads have chickens, and it's like the gateway animal to having a farm. And a lot of us will tell you that our eggs are not cheaper than the eggs you can buy at the store. Now, if you were to take it and do a full comparison, like an accurate comparison, you know, a truly pasture-raised egg probably would be pretty expensive. But as far as, you know, your regular old run-of-the-mill egg, a lot of times when you have homestead chickens, you've got a lot, especially an upfront cost in building coops and things into that flock before you ever start to see a return to pay those things off, and then you start getting your eggs. Now, to some people, it might not be a cost thing at all. It might just be a security thing, like, hey, I can have eggs at all. And I think that's really valid. But when you have a situation where the price is a little bit inflated, like you can still get the thing, but the price is, you know, what it is right now, astronomical for the humble egg, maybe if you did like a cost benefit analysis, you'd figure out that it's still probably not much cheaper to get chickens right now. I think that right now for a lot of people that already had chickens, yeah, it's cheaper to have chickens right now. But to start a flock right now, especially with the prices that people are charging for things like laying hens and fertile eggs, I don't think it makes a lot of financial sense to start a chicken flock right now from scratch. So one of the stories that we heard recently was, I think it was 8 laying hens, something like that, went for like $750 at our local auction, our local Amish auction. We have a friend who sold 1 dozen fertile chicken eggs for $100, and somebody wanted to pay that. They thought that that was a deal, And I was like, my goodness. And then we were talking to another one of our Amish friends who said, well, that is a deal if you think about that. I saw one laying hen go for $120 or something like that. Over $100 at auction, one hen. Now Levi and I don't really frequent the stores that sell chicks very often. We buy a lot of our feed just at the local feed store, and they don't offer, you know, animal sales or anything there. But as far as I know, chicks and things are going for, you know, a normal price. Maybe it's a little bit inflated like a lot of things are lately, but the chicks aren't astronomically expensive. But from what I've been hearing is they are selling out really, really fast because people are buying them all up and then offering them like on places like Facebook Marketplace for an upcharge, which I really don't agree with. It feels a lot like these things are being artificially inflated, and I think that if people really would refuse to pay these kinds of prices, that they would go down. I think it's because that people are willing to pay these prices for whatever reason that the prices are remaining very high, so high that to me personally, if I needed to start a flock from scratch right now, I wouldn't find it to be worth it. I would find something else to eat in the morning. There's actually quite a few things that you can substitute eggs with, especially in baking. And I can definitely acknowledge that not everybody has that kind of a want out of their eggs. Many people eat like keto or carnivore, and they're not eating their eggs in that way. But if you are trying to replace your eggs in some of your baking or something, look into flax eggs or chia eggs. You can get flaxseed meal and chia seeds and make a really nice egg substitute out of those things that works very well in baking. So this is a little bit of a hard conversation to have because it's hard not to come off like I'm being judgmental at people for selling chicks and eggs at such inflated prices, but I don't think that we as homesteaders should really be doing that. I don't think we should see this artificial inflated opportunity and really take advantage of people. That's what it feels like. It feels like people are being taken advantage of, and it's completely unnecessary. This freeze dryer, I filled it with 7.5 dozen eggs. We've got a lot of eggs. We've been eating a lot of eggs, and I still had 7.5 dozen to put in the freeze dryer. If I were to sell them at $100 a dozen, I would have filled the freeze dryer with $750 worth of fertile chicken eggs. Could I use $750? Yes, but I don't think that personally I could sleep at night. If I sold all of these eggs and made $750, it wouldn't feel right to me. I have sold eggs in the past. When we sold them, it was, I think it was $3.50 per dozen and then $5 for 18. It's been a long time since we sold our eggs. But I did have somebody in the community, goodness, this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. At some point, she knew that I had roosters. She had passed by the farm and seen things, and she had stopped and said, hey, do you have any fertile chicken eggs? And I was like, yeah. And I just gave them to her. And not that long later, she came back with, she called them pink buttercup bulbs, but they're really those daffodils that you see pop up everywhere this time of year. She had a patch of pink ones, and she came by and gave me those bulbs, and they're coming up right now. I put them in the ground, and I've split them and put them all over my farm. And so essentially I traded those dozen fertile chicken eggs for some beautiful bulbs that remind me about a lovely connection that I've made in my community. And really, I think when someone shows interest in this kind of lifestyle, what established homesteaders really should do is try and foster community, because that's really what this is all about. It should not be, in my opinion, about making a buck when you see the opportunity. I don't really want to condemn somebody for doing what they can to provide for their family. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but maybe think twice about charging some of these really inflated prices. I feel like it just feeds a monster that really, it honestly inhibits the growth of homesteading when we make even the humble chicken so outrageously unaffordable. All that to say, if you're local and you'd like some fertile hatching eggs, I've got plenty. You can have them. Really, right now, I have so many eggs that these are going to go away in Mylar bags for long-term storage because I already have a ton of eggs. There's all these. There's these here, right? I've got a bunch of eggs here in jars. The jar form of storing them is really for short term, but I've got another one here, and this thing of eggs is actually labeled 2023. So it was November 2023, but it's still quite a while ago, so I've got a ton of eggs already put away. I want to use what's in jars first, and then we'll save these for the long term. Because they're freeze-dried and stored properly, they should last 20 to 25 years. What I did with these is I scrambled them before adding them to the freeze dryer. I didn't scramble them and then cook them, I just scrambled them up to break the yolks and really make the whole egg mixture more homogeneous. And when it comes to rehydrating these, I'll add 2 tablespoons of the powderized egg with 2 tablespoons of water, and that will equal 1 egg. And I can use that, you can cook it and eat it just like a scrambled egg, or you can use it in any kind of recipe that calls for eggs. And I haven't had to do a whole lot of that because our chickens, we do have them lay year round, so we've been getting eggs this whole winter, not in as much abundance as we're getting them now. They do slow down some, so I'm saving these for a rainy day or like a truly scarcity situation. Came outside to take a thumbnail photo and knew that this vlog was plenty long enough. I would love to hear the stories that you guys have about chicken prices, egg prices in your area. I'm sure this is a conversation that could get a little bit heated, so let's try to be kind. Let's try to remember that we all have different goals. I am making a little bit of a change to my posting schedule to kind of accommodate our different needs as our kids get older with homeschooling and with how the farm is growing. So I'm going to be posting a little bit less, but they're going to be longer videos. Basically the same amount of us, just in like less frequent time frame with larger packages, if that makes sense. So yeah, happy spring to those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. Hopefully you've got an abundance of eggs if you have some chickens, some affordable chickens. I'll see you guys again soon.